Okay, thank you. And I think we'll start. Call to order discussion of the minutes from March 28th. Does anybody have any discussion that they would like to talk about?
Do you need papers, Drew?
You,
Highlight
Yeah,
there,
Drew.
like,
Well, those are just agendas.
any discussion?
I have one comment.
No comment.
No, I have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would I be here? There's no attachment on the Ashley Wynn letter that is away. It says Ashley Wynn Memorial Project letter attached. You very much wanted that.
We have attached a letter from Janice Mealy. I don't know if I have that.
That doesn't get put in with that gets put in with this. So it didn't get distributed in that file because I didn't have that. I couldn't integrate the files. So when it gets filed, this will go with it, as will all the other meeting materials. No, the letter's not in your packet, it was in the last packet.
I don't think it was in the last packet. I think I might have given only the people that were here in the room. But
Probably.
I don't have a copy of that letter. Why would I have a copy? Anything else? Is that Janice's letter right there? Any other comments or questions? A motion,
I move the adoption of the minutes as printed.
I second.
second, any discussion? All in favor? All right, so noted, thank you. Discussion, under new business A, discussion revision of facade improvement program guidelines. In the fairness of the other three important ones that are there, I think I would take a motion to table that, in that we could, if we have time at the end, we can work on it, because we have some very important, the other three are quite important. Not to say that's not important. All that to say is,
Well, do we vote on the motion and we discuss it?
You need a motion in a second.
yeah,
I move we table item 3A.
okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yes, this could possibly be the last meeting of this committee. And I think it would be very strange if had new people revising the guidelines. We've all had 6 years here. We probably learned something. Probably some things that we need to unlearn. But I just don't think it'd be right to have a new committee revising. So I think this is pretty important.
If it was a new committee, wouldn't it make sense if the new committee was,
They have no experience with it. They'll just come in, I mean,
well, not necessarily.
the things that we'd like to change that we wouldn't get to express. It's up to the select board whether we stay on or not.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not saying, you know, we could go at the end or maybe you need another meeting before that. I just don't think it's right to bring new. I mean, look at how lost we were when we first started. It's like a long time to learn it. It's a lot of details.
Well, Mr. Chairman, did you want to just table it till later in today's?
Yeah,
meeting?
I'd like to just table it till later, and move it to the end of new business for now,
Yeah.
and see how, if that's okay.
Not for indefinite postponement, it's just reorder the priority of it.
Any more discussion? All in favor of tabling it to the end of the new business? Okay, all opposed?
Well, I'm afraid it gets to the end of all the other business. It'll be at 5 o'clock and everybody will be ready to go home. But I think it was something everybody else.
Okay, the motion carries. And so noted, and let's get right to the business and we'll get it done. How's that? Okay, 3B, discussion and action of airport parking paving proposal. Is there anybody to speak to that?
So I can lead that if there's no objection, and then you do have folks in the audience that hear about that.
And you all have a picture.
Yeah, and for members of the public that would like it, on the back side, these are double-sided agendas here, they've got tacked out.
Oh,
sorry.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
My bad.
I thought it was this whole package.
The Airport Advisory Committee has been asking time and time again to consider having the parking lot outside of the gate. To the left of Airport Road, behind the terminal building, paved. It can get soupy from time to time. It's the primary parking area for community events when we're out there. And then also came a recent opportunity through FAA funding for them to consider installing an automated gate all the way into the left. So right now you drive down Airport Road, right straight ahead is an automated gate. There's an opportunity for a second gate into the left, which is kind of on your map where it narrows up. If you look at this, this is the parking lot here. It narrows up to go through that gate. Where it narrows up, that's where a proposed automated gate would be, funded ideally 55%, 95% by state and federal grants.
Why would they need the gate? The additional gate?
So the additional gate is a safety concern for the Airport Advisory Committee. And so it's a safety concern primarily. Right now, you've got a large number of hangar-ons that are going in through the gate, out and around onto taxiways, taxi lanes in order to come back down. Okay. So there's that, and then you've got a couple, the reason asking for TIF. Yes, it's a transit-oriented TIF, but also the economic development opportunity. When we talk about the parking lot at the airport, folks that I've talked to have said, well, you know, that's where we park facilities and things like that. And if you have to be creative about getting a project like that to fit, then that's another good way to justify the expense at the airport. So on the top of that sheet that was distributed in your packets, I had approximated the square footage of paving. And FAA, in order to put this gate in, needs it paved on both sides. So that gets you to a little over 26,000 square feet of area. Translate that into about 500 tons if you're on a 3-inch surface, and the cost of asphalt is about 42,500. And we would also need, you know, to do some gravel work here and there. Theoretically, that ballpark 5,000. Obviously, where there's grass or whatnot, there are concerns about paving over. So maybe it's not grass now, but it's probably not good material either. So they need to pull that out and put some gravel in. But realistically, from a budgetary perspective, we're looking at up to 50,000 to accomplish this parking lot paving, and then through that gate and up and onto the taxiway between the fuel farm and the maintenance building and hangar 1. That's the project overview. So you can ask me questions. We've got Ron here from Airport Advisory. Then we have Bruce. Bruce is here. He's our airport maintenance supervisor. Kenny Morgan, who's a multi-hangar owner and small business owner at the airport, is in the parking lot on the conference call. I'm sure he wants to take questions when he comes in. All supporters of the project.
All supporters of the project. Okay.
So Richard, I would add to that, that the fuel deliveries, I could be wrong, but the fuel deliveries could come in that gate too, instead of going out around onto the runway, which is another safety hazard that was discussed at the airport advisory. Rich, you could probably add more to it.
Yeah,
I'm sure,
the fuel deliveries now, and plus where Kenny Morgan's hangar is the one of his largest hangars, the one just inside that automated gate on the right hand side. See where the automated gate right to the right, that big hangar?
Yeah.
That's Kenny's hangar. So the taxiway kind of starts right there. So with vehicles, lots of vehicles that come in, every vehicle comes in at one single gate. And if Kenny has a plane pulled out, ready to go, he runs out there and he puts like orange cones. And when you drive in with even with like a pickup truck or something, kind of gotta watch the wing on Kenny. We really don't want to have somebody running an airplane either. But like Ron said, the fuel deliveries have a tendency of coming out around because that's real muddy that goes through that gate part, and a lot of traffic that goes through that area kind of drags mud up into where the fuel farm is. You know, if like where the maintenance shed is and stuff, or when the trucks come out there, it gets kind of muddy, especially this time of year. Leaves a lot of dirt on the taxiway. So when airplanes drive up to fuel, they're blowing the props are blowing a lot of dirt around too, so. It would kind of give also folks that live their hangars on the fuel farm side, they could come in that gate and not have to go all the way out into the taxiway. It would really divert a lot of traffic right away and send them down a taxiway between hangar roll 100 and 200. Which is not the main taxiway, that's kind of, between hangar roll 100 and 200 is really basically a taxiway for those two rows of hangars, but the main taxiway is way, if you see this picture where the aircraft is way back towards the green in the corner, that's the main taxiway, that goes all the way up, it takes us out to the runway 33. So it would divert a lot of traffic and it would keep a lot of traffic away from aircraft on that taxiway up by Ken's hangar.
I mean, I'd just like to add too, I mean, I don't look at $50,000 as, you know, it's a lot of money. I'm not gonna downplay that at all. It is a lot of money. But the TIF, I look at it as putting investment back into the town. I mean, whether it's to a private business, you can put up the, unless you guys have revised it, I think it's 30,000 into a private business, which has been done a few times. I think that's a great thing for the TIF, but if it can be used for investment in the town owned facilities, I think that's a plus too. That's just my take on it. Some people would argue different. I mean, everybody in town has a different perspective on everything. I'm not a pilot. I don't use the airport facilities, but I think it's a great thing for town. The library, a lot of people don't go to the library, and I don't use the library, but I think the library is a great asset for the town. It takes all of these small things, in my opinion, to make the town, whether it's the airport, the rec, the library. I mean, I think we need to be proud of the town we live in, and I am. I just think it takes all of this. So if we can put a small investment, it's actually a big investment. If we have the money to do this, I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. Do you have anything you want to say? You guys, you want to speak to them?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you? Good. Okay, so everybody has said no so far. Ken, do you want to say anything? Just a joke. Want to speak to it, Ken? So we've had, Richard has talked to us about the proposal here. And the 50, he said about $50,000 to get it off time.
What do I have to say about it? This probably something that should happen quite a while ago, but needs to be done. So hopefully I won't get to the mud anymore,
Yeah.
but it'll be a really good upgrade for us.
Okay. Mr. Ledger,
How are you? Good.
do you want to speak to it at all, or?
All on board.
All right.
Let's do it.
Board? Comments, questions? So we don't have a motion yet. So we should get a motion before we discuss, you think?
An affirmative motion, it would be a motion to approve the proposed project of up to $50,000 or whatever number you select for the project.
Okay, that we,
Approve up to $50,000 for the airport parking area paving proposal. Is that?
have a second. What's that? Okay, discussion. I know, that's what it looks like. Thank you all for your dedication to the town of Norridgewock. I think you put it really well. We're more than just a rec department or a library or a park. We're a town, and everything needs to work in concert in order to be more attractive to people coming into our village. So,
Right, I mean, I think within our budget, we can't go overboard, but the TIF has certain guidelines that
We all
We
know.
didn't have this TIF money, could it happen? Probably not.
We all know that hot top is expensive sport too. I see, is there any parking for your office area? It doesn't look like it goes over in front of the office at all.
For me,
No, for the
for the terminal building,
your terminal building.
it's actually just outside the fence. By the terminal building.
So that's the terminal,
Walkway went to the terminal building.
is that the terminal building here?
There's a terminal.
Oh, okay,
So most people that come to the terminal
okay,
actually park outside this gate, they don't have access to
Okay.
it. They park out there and there's a personnel gate right there, so they can walk through. Everybody see that? I'm sorry.
does this include any lining? Does this include any? Ledger, am I have to?
I know, first time back and we get kicked out already.
You've only been in here 5 minutes. Is there any lining in this or is this strictly just paper?
This is strictly just the pay.
And is this an estimate or is this your best estimate or is this an actual estimate from a company?
So I used our GIS map tool to get the square footage.
Yeah.
And then I applied the current price that we have for another project in town for.
Okay.
That project to approximate.
And would this include preparation too? I mean,
So largely the prep can be done by Public Works.
Okay.
So the cost of material, it's not gonna be the cost of equipment and the.
do I hear any more discussion before we vote on the matter? I hear no more discussion. All in favor of the motion, which is,
To approve up to $50,000 for the proposal as outlined.
okay, all in favor? All opposed? It's passed unanimously. Congratulations, congratulations. All right. That's it. Good. Thank you, everybody, for your input. And I think it's a great asset to our town. Number C. Discussion and action on the wastewater system digital mapping proposal.
I'm gonna punt this one actually, because Rodney Bickford is here. He is our now chair of the sewer commission. He's also a member of the Norridgewock water trustee. He's a water trustee, and then he also has professional affiliations as well.
Doggies.
Yeah, all right, so are you guys all aware of GIS mapping, what it is? A little, so your tax map is an overlay, has different property lines, different information, and so that's GIS mapping. And the water district, so I'm gonna preface this with the water district is moving towards a more electronic map system. So we have a lot of paper maps, a lot of paper records. The way of the future in the water industry is to digitize maps. It allows us to utilize them in the field. It gives us a lot more hands-on experience or hands-on information while we're making critical decisions of protecting public health, right? We have a main break. We can identify which valves very quickly to close to isolate that leak that could potentially cause a coliform, hit or something, someone gets sick. Same idea for the wastewater. We have paper maps, we have paper records, we have as-built. It was in the 90s that it was built. Those are great if they're here, right? For Tim, who works at the wastewater treatment plant, if they have a break or something that he's addressing, he needs to have access to those relatively instantly. Yeah, so we applied for and received a $25,000 grant, the drinking water, the water district, through the main drinking water program to digitize these records. We are expecting about $35,000 to do that work. We think that there's a lot of value in it, again, to protect public health. So as part of that, as being part of the wastewater side as well, there is some saving of resources, some cost savings for the wastewater side if we did it in conjunction. So I guess what I'm asking here is to get an idea of what you guys are thinking, potentially up to $25,000 to do this work. And again, what we're going to end up with is a better map. It's going to be accessible. The data is going to be stored if there were a fire here. I don't know our record retention policy, Richard can speak on it, but if there's a fire, we could lose paper records under the water district. If there's a fire under Sulas, we would have no idea what's in the ground. Well, Dave's phenomenal, but I would have no idea what's in the ground.
Right.
And then so all they'd be backed up, they'd be available as needed for maintenance items and that kind of stuff. So we are receiving proposals now. They are due May 2nd. So I'd like to, get your thoughts on doing the wastewater side in conjunction with the water district. Project, I guess, for cost saving.
So let me see, I'm not sure if anybody followed that, but I did. So let me put it in, let me rephrase what you just said in layman's terms. You have a grant for $25,000 for water,
Correct.
a water mappings, a digital mapping system.
Correct.
It's gonna cost to do the water mapping system about 35,000.
That's the estimate, yeah.
A good listener. And how much more to do the sewer mapping?
So I know CAI, who currently we use for the town ArcGIS, gave a rough estimate of 20 to 25.
So what I hear you saying is it possibly could cost $60,000 for a water and sewer map system.
Correct.
And you currently have a $25,000 grant.
Correct.
Okay, so that when we're looking at $35,000 you're asking for or want to get our input on it?
Ideally, I would get approval to spend up to $25,000 for the sewer department to create a GIS map for the sewer solely. The water district will take care of that separately.
Oh, okay.
I'm not here on, I'll take money. I give us money.
I didn't know what the question was, I guess.
Yes,
That's
so,
so what are you asking for?
Just for the sewer.
I'm asking just for
the sewer?
Correct, yeah, I'm asking just for the sewer approval to, and ideally up to 25,000 to complete GIS mapping in conjunction with the water district.
Are there any grants available for that?
I work in water. I'm not super familiar with the municipal wastewater department side. I know water side, there's lots of things.
Yeah.
There may be. But I'm not sure on what time frame or what we're gonna be eligible for as a municipal district as opposed to quasi municipal. What they are entitled to, but I can be different from what we
Yeah.
entitled to.
I will say, at the water district, we are very cost sensitive. I'll put it that way. We're not gonna necessarily pick the cheapest person to perform this work, but we have a proposal out.
Sure.
That evaluates many different aspects, past work, past experience, who would be working with professional staff, credentials, as well as cost, but cost is 40% of work outline cost is 40% of the total.
And the sewer department is a town?
It operates as a separate fund, but it's overseen by the town.
Okay. Just like the airport?
That's correct.
Hey,
You're on
been
it.
in this town a few years. Okay, so, any questions?
The water district, Richard, is totally separate.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify. Yeah. It was just kind of filling in the big picture. Will they be mapped together? Will the map be a combined map?
So my project under the water district side is to generate what's called shape files, which is a downloadable file that I can throw at Richard and he can put it on the town map.
Yeah.
And as anyone that has access to Esri GIS systems, it's a little bit more complicated than that, can import this and display it. It's basically geolocated information that you can overlay over any existing Google Maps.
Right.
It's a little different, but yeah, same idea. But potentially, I think there's a lot of value in that, having water and sewer both have maps being available to both Dave Jones, who's the superintendent, as well as Tim, who's the wastewater operator.
And the town maintenance group too.
Right.
Yes,
Again, I fully support this. I think it's an investment in the town. It's good for the TIF to support. Does this tell like the depth of the sewer lines and all that, or just the location?
Yeah, so you can put any information you want on this. As far as the water district is going, our proposal did ask for the mains to be mapped in the two-dimensional space, as well as provide information on the material, year install, depth. Any valve is going to be GPS located down to about 2 inches. It's going to be on display on this map. It's going to be geolocated. So yeah, it's going to have all that information. There are some concerns with, obviously, we had talked about making it publicly available for food safety. Someone could potentially do harm to the water or sewer infrastructure. I think there is a concern with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, even if it's not publicly available, when you're gonna do work later on a sewer line or a water line,
Yeah.
somebody would have access to that. I mean,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think there's value in that. There's value on making it publicly available.
Yeah. There's concerns there, in my mind.
Right, you know.
But it does,
50 years ago, no, but now
Right.
it's totally.
and it does add a lot of value. I know we're talking about like economic development stuff in the tip. It does add a lot of value to the town from the side of it. It makes work easier, so it's gonna save cost on that. And it does kind of bring us, it elevates us to a more professional level. Every water and wastewater, mid to larger utilities are using these mapping systems. And it's also gonna make any kind of work in the future considerably easier, having this information.
Good job. That's good. It's exciting. Nice to be in the digital age, isn't it?
It is.
Available from Big Safe.
Yes, well, we do our own dig safe, but yeah, so if we have a dig safe, Tim goes out, but yes.
Questions, comments from the board?
I think it's a great idea. The only question I have is, if TIF wasn't to do this, or is there any possibility that there's money elsewhere for this? Does it have to come out of TIF in order to do it, or is there some budget or reserves or something somewhere else that could be part of it?
So I think, yeah, there probably does a reserve, there's the sewer reserve, but it's just like the airport. It's one of those projects that without the tip, we just wouldn't be looking at it.
But it could be a partial contribution, though, could be some amount from there and the rest from TIF.
If we didn't have, no, we fight for break even with both of those entities, the airport and the sewer. And sewer just put up rates again, announced rate increases, well, they were effective February 1st. Same with the airport, we just increased rates. It's the battle for break even on those independent funds. Our goal, my charge is to maintain those entities as break even entities. So the luxury, it's something we wouldn't be doing, like Ron said, we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't have a pool of money. So I mean, we could pull it from there, but we wouldn't, is what it is. It's a nice to have, and we're taking advantage of cost savings for us in the water district by doing it together.
In one of our TIF increment financing advisory committee guidelines is to support desirable projects that are otherwise financially infeasible. So this is one of those projects that we're fortunate to have TIF, this money as a pool of money to be able to put to these projects. Awesome.
I think that's what I said, John. I mean, I don't want to downplay just throwing money in something that we don't need. I mean, like going to the store to buy a candy bar, do you need it? No, but you do it if you have the money. I mean, I don't want to just say do it because we have the money, but
There is something
guidelines-
better to do with your money than other things.
Right, but the TIF guidelines are so stringent and everything. I mean, it's a good project to support out of TIF, I guess.
What your emotion?
I'll make a motion to support the proposal for the wastewater system digital mapping. Actually, is it for sewer?
Yeah.
The word would be for sewer, for $25,000.
Up to 25,000 or 25,000?
Up to.
Up to, okay.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have to say for GIS mapping or goes with that?
Any more discussion?
I think it's a good ways for them to.
Ms. Ireland?
I think it's a good idea.
What?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor? No opposes, unanimous, thank you. Nice job, thank you guys very much, thank you for your dedication to the town, I think, I think it all makes us a better place to come and live, so, and that's our objective. Especially on the river. Okay, we're at D, which is to update update regarding the committee appointments. Do you want to just speak to that quickly?
Sure, I can run through that briefly. So the chair and he asked that I speak to this real quick. Everybody received a letter that's on the committee. About the process that the select board wants to move about. We're reapplying, getting other folks involved, if qualified and interested. We are still getting applications in. The due date's the 10th or 11th of May, in and around that. The select board chair and I have had preliminary discussions, and at the next select board meeting, we're gonna ask for the board's full blessing to process applications blind. So the applications will come in, name, contact information will be redacted, assigned a number, and then sent to the board. And the board members will individually review them and provide their top 7 or 8 or 9 individuals, and then they would be accordingly ranked, so that we're not going through these public interviews or reviews, if you will, so respectful of the candidates and what's submitted.
That's a good idea.
And then if it gets down to, we've got 7 and 8 and they're tied, so they're really both 7s, then you can have maybe a productive discussion, but someone makes anonymous at that point in time. And then once that discourse is through, then number 2 is John Mailer or whatever. And move about that way. So that's really our targeted approach at this point in time. In order to remain respectful of everybody and then have a neutral review of applications. Or content applications can be very important.
Awesome. So what I hear you say, again, to rephrase what you're saying, is the applications will probably be done 10th or 11th. Okay, and it'll be brought to the selectmen on a blind. And then the decision will be made for the next meeting.
They're gonna do it, hopefully, have it complete at their regular meeting, the second regular meeting in May. Which would have a board seated in time for the regular TIF meeting in May.
Okay.
4th Tuesday. In May.
Okay.
Are we discussing it?
I don't know if this is even a discussion if you want to, yeah.
I think it's a very nice idea. I think it's pretty impossible. I think you'd be leaving out a big factor. Not to say what experience. I mean, one of the big questions on that application is kind of why should you be on it? What experience do you have? I think it'd be nice to know that someone's an attorney. Someone's been on the record, give your credentials, people could be able to figure it out. I think the biggest single thing here is one of the questions is, do you have any bias? I think that's got to work both ways for the applicant and the reviewers. It's a nice idea, blind the name, but I don't know how you can give your qualifications in a small town like this. That's saying somebody should be on that meeting. I just think it's impossible.
Oh, it's impossible, but the alternative is to say, oh, should we pick Becky Ketchum or John Malick? I mean, then now you're into some, well, it's different sides of the river. And so the point is, I think that's a better way to do it than to put out names.
It's good to put out names. I'm just saying it's a limit to what it's going to do. And so I hope there's also instructions and that bias then works both ways.
Well, the application that was sent, that this application here will have all the information, there's no names.
So read like the third question.
The third question, availability, interest, or bias and
No,
conflict.
first on the first page, what's the question about? What's your experience in the town?
Availability, interest, and qualifications. Yeah, they include previous volunteer work, professional work, hobbies, and
So
that's.
you're not necessarily gonna write what you do in the town, it's just. So maybe Drew's not gonna write, I'm a lawyer, and so,
Wouldn't you?
you know what I mean? Like,
And I'm in a blue building downtown.
yeah.
And you don't know who I am.
With the name Kevin on it.
But wouldn't you want to know that if I was on the committee trying to pick an applicant, I would want to know what their credentials are. I would want to know that they've been in the town for 50 years and
That's
that
okay.
we wanted Drew on the committee because he has the attorney background. I mean, that was pretty clear. Right, in the beginning, we want people because they bring different things. We wanted you for what you were doing at the time. We wanted Jesse because you had the bank experience. We picked people based on what their credentials were. So not to really, to try to blind those credentials. Anyway, I'm saying it's a nice idea. I hope it works.
Thank you.
I don't want to jump in your discussion.
I see that. You love being on this.
No, I say.
Yeah, nice comfortable chair, you know that.
No, can I speak? So it would be a lot of work for Richard, but I mean, I guess if. And maybe he'll. Take me out back after this and I won't be around, but. If he could go through, or somebody could go through the applications and blank that all out and just say served on. Town board for 15 years, nobody's gonna know what board it is. A business owner in town for 30 years, lived in town for 40 years. Don't show the board the whole application. I guess that's. One way around that. It's just a suggestion, but it's up to you guys, because I see what Becky says. I mean, we do live in a small town. Everybody's gonna know. I mean, I could probably go through a lot of the applications. Myself, if I see them and say, yes, that's Becky. Oh, no, that's Sally, or it's John, or it's. Whoever. So if you really wanted to do that and make it blind, which I think is a good thing, and I think it's positive that you have so much interest in this. I wish everyone in town, selectmen board and everything had that much interest. I think that's a great thing. But to truly make it blind, you would have to do that. And they can put whatever on the application, but you could just go through and, or somebody, and blank that all out and just put, 3 years on a board in town, 10 years on a board in town. Thank you.
Maybe the appeals board should do it.
Thank you for your, Jay.
I just want to make a quick comment. So I called Richard a week or two ago when this stuff came out, and I said, I really enjoyed my work on the board. I really enjoyed working with everybody who's in this room. And the members and some of the members like Ruth and Gary, who don't happen to be here today, but have been regular contributors. It's been a great opportunity. The interesting thing was I said, I think I've been doing this for 3 years. He said, think again, you've been doing it for 6. So, but of course, we don't meet every month. So sometimes it seems, but it's a good idea to bring new people in. And so I told Richard that no matter what method they used, that I wouldn't be putting my name in it. And I felt like it's when I was a member of the House of Representatives, they said, term limits at 8 years. I said, you only need term limits to get me out. I'll know it's time. I left at the end of 4 years, was funny when I'm the Attorney General. It's just one of those things. I think it's good to have new people coming in. I don't know how many other people around this table would put in to do it again for another 3 years or 6 years or however long the appointment is for. But I've had a great time. I feel like I've contributed kind of a special knowledge with 2 areas. One, I do know something about the law. And the second thing is that around here, there's a shortage of people who make motions. And I'm good at putting motions out there. And sometimes I have to be my own second when I get it going. But anyway, so I'm not going to take up any more time, but I didn't want to just not come to the last meeting. So I got other stuff. I got a big case tomorrow in court. I'll be there all day. So I'm going to leave, but I wanted to say goodbye to everybody and thank you. You've been great colleagues, great friends. And frankly, it's been a lot of fun. And I think we actually did a little public good in the last 6 years. I don't know how much, but we did some. But anyway, Richard, you've been a great staffer to have on here. And we sort of actually treat you like a kind of a member and say, what do you think we should do? It's not actually how it's supposed to work, but that's how we worked it, So anyway, thanks for everything. And before we have another involved discussion, I'm going to leave, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for your expertise.
Yeah.
And professionalism.
All right.
If we need a tissue, are we all set? Thanks, Drew. All set? Okay, that's the end of our new business. If anybody wants to leave, they can. I don't feel bad. We are going to discuss our action and revision of the facade improvement program, which is this year. I know what the original one that you gave us last time had highlights. Oh, here they are.
This one does.
Yeah. So everybody has this in front of them. Yeah. So there's nothing on the first page, nothing on the second page. Page 2, page 3 in red are the proposed draft changes. Let's speak to each one. The annual funding went from shall not exceed, used to be 20% of the total annual revenue received. Wow. And now you'd like 50%.
You can always go up to. But we've talked about,
Oh, I see, you utilize, okay.
right, so right now, this is the only program really. Until today that we've been looking at for funding things and the business impact and whatnot, so. I just think you set a threshold for what you want to go up to and. You can always stay at 20, you can leave it at 20 if that's your pleasure. I just didn't know if that number should be moved up. We're bringing in about $140,000 a year,
So 20% would only be 28,000.
so it limits what you're able to do with that, so.
And we spent 75 tonight.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Right, which is about 1/10 of what's balance of the tech.
But this, yeah,
Annually, what you could spend.
Right. An up to number, just like everything else.
should we have a vote on this? Which I'm not sure how we should do this. This is changing our guidelines. Can we agree and then move on, and then vote at the end? Okay, is that okay with the board? Okay.
So what do you say, like, when you vote at the end, like, that you agree to all changes, or,
That the changes that we recommend, and
and then you just say if you disagree with one, whatever, okay?
50% okay with everybody? Up to 50%, not to exceed.
Keep it 20, 50%.
I'm sorry,
I would rather stay at 20,
why?
because 50% would be happy. Money comes in. One project.
Up to, we don't have to spend it all.
It just opens up the availability to, if you want to. So it doesn't, it can still be 20%, just,
People tend to spend it if they have it.
Well, like Richard just said, these are the first two, I mean, except for our facade improvements that we have had to spend money on, except flags. You know, the docking system.
The other thing is we talk about bumping into guidelines. So if you have it at 20%, that's great, but if you have two really good projects that are coming on facade and each one 25,000, you're only able to do 27. Or we're gonna go right back then and there and scramble and say, oh, we need to change the guidelines so that we can increase it to accommodate both of these requests. And I feel like, candidly, that's where we end up usually. We either ignore the rule or we go back and change the rule. So my thought was if you put the up to number, that you were not changing rules. It gives you the latitude to spend up to 50%.
One month you may have somebody who wants something really good, and the next month, somebody else might come along and then.
That's if you leave it at 20%, you've only got 27,000, 28.
so with what you're saying, you have a better option to do both of them if it's at 50% rather than 20. Because if you had done the first one and used the 20%, then you have nothing left if somebody comes back the next month.
Two or three good proposals, and if you're using 50% for the first one, then maybe somebody else comes along and you're. You're having money for the third one. But, you know, whatever you guys want to do.
I think one of the big problems to me is that there's no long-term planning that I see with this money. We've got 750,000 or something, I think, and the new committee may do this. We should think about what long-term, what do we have to do with that money? We're just going along one by one, people come in, they ask for money and give it to them. I'm aware of only one time that we have turned down money to somebody. Reduced it, a few of the things we reduced it, almost everybody that came, well, actually, it was much bigger one we did come down the airport, but there are, they actually.
For the airport,
They didn't actually apply to do the terminal, we did not
Yeah.
proceed with that project, but a big project like that, to use it for example in this room, if you had something like that that you wanted to do that was major. It should, just like the fire department plans ahead for buying their trucks or whatever, you should know. We want to do this and actually bring, or we want to do, you know, whatever the big project is. We're not planning, we're just reacting to everybody that comes in. We're not thinking about PFAS testing and all that. We see what Fairfield went through. Where are we if we have a huge crisis? Or every year our expenses are going up with the taxes. To, you know, we talked about using TIF money for that. I just feel like we're not planning. solid use of the TIF money. It's piece by piece, where I live my life and
So what do you recommend?
I'm okay with the 50%, but I wish we also made some planning thing in place, that here are goals, here are things, I mean, I'm sure Richard doesn't want to,
Okay,
that we know we want to do.
yeah, but
So
then,
like if we'd done a covered bridge, to use another.
Yeah.
They're all controversial examples, but if we had wanted to do a covered bridge over the trust. It would have been nice, that would have been a nice long-term, be able to pull money out for that. It's something you couldn't have given us if it was only 20%.
well, that's not true, because we don't have to stay within the 50% if it's something outside of a facade improvement. So if it's the airport, that isn't in our facade improvement. So that's a whole different, you're talking about, we're talking just about facade improvements right now. We're not talking about the money that we have available.
Okay. So that's a different discussion that has.
Yeah, that's a different
At
discussion.
some point, we need to
Yeah.
have a long-term plan.
Then that would be 50% just for someone's facade.
Yes, that's all.
The whole program. Per year. The whole program would be up to 50%, not one individual application.
Right.
The facade program would get shut down if say the number's 140, once we hit 70,000 grants that year, there's no more grant applications, they'd have to wait till a new cycle.
For facade improvement,
And
not for all these projects, that's something different.
25.
And then we would have the money to those projects.
Oh, we have more than enough, money, yeah.
So
Check the other pocket.
the town has been very gracious in allowing funds to stay in the TIF fund. Technically, it gets cleared out at the end of every year, but the town has steadily found value in leaving it for economic development. So I think that's a huge thing. I mean, it could go into general fund and be used for other things without the committee approval. But it has, and the town has kept it here. You're only supposed to have $140,000 a year to work with under the TIF. The accrual of those unspent monies is the town saying we value economic development. So I think that's a thing worth noting when we talk about the TIF committee and the facade program and whatnot. And then the things that we don't deny, keep in mind, most applicants come and see me first. I typically tell them they're not eligible. I get called all the time, is this eligible, is that eligible? I had exterior lighting questions the other day. If they're flush to the surface and I can't see them from the street, we're not gonna pay for them. Oh, okay, thanks. Save you guys all the paperwork and cancel a meeting. What do we do? Well, maybe you could give this, if you have this kind of information, go with it. So I try to do all that pre-screening for projects so that it makes it easy for you. So that's why, it's like the select board, well, the select board always says yes. We've tried to filter through all of the no's before we get there, make the process a lot more streamlined.
So basically what he's saying, again, is that in order for us to help people fix the outside of their building, right now, we can only spend total for our whole year about $28,000. This is allowing us to spend about $70,000 if we had the people who applied. If. That's all it's saying, it up to. Okay, 50%, 50%, 50%, we're all set with that. F, called G now, waiver of requirement, the town of Norridgewock facade improvement program guidelines is a document that sets out a guide for project funding consideration and award. An applicant may request a waiver of any program requirement in writing. With a substantiation, the waiver shall not be granted by a majority vote of the TIF committee, and the documentation of such waiver being incorporated in the applicant's file and the meeting minutes of the committee. What does that mean?
So we've talked about making exceptions. We've given exceptions for people starting projects because of time sensitivity and supply chain and things like that. The only way you're gonna get that, it's not gonna be by just saying, oops, we already started. It's gonna be by having a documented trail of this is why we're seeking the exception. We do it in building, it's like plan review. We're asking to be exempted from this and this is why. Okay. And if it's not acceptable to the majority of the board, it would have to be voted on. And then it gets incorporated into their actual grant approval, if it's approved.
Kind of like the truck place. Yeah. We all set with that? Good?
Wait a minute. Are we discussing it?
Yeah.
I can't believe this one. What you said, if I'm reading it right, and maybe I'm not understanding it. What this says is an applicant may request a waiver on any program requirement in writing. So that means anything in this document, it could be, they could want 70%, they could not, they could be a nonprofit asking for money. They could want something that's inside the building. They could make any request in writing. They could change it. When why not this? They could change anything in here. And
A
the
request
majority
isn't
of the
necessarily a change, though.
excuse me,
A request isn't necessarily to mean that it's gonna change, though. Right?
they request a waiver. That waiver means change. Means you're not following the rules, right? So we're waiving it and
But if you're just requesting it, is it can be denied, right?
it can be, yeah, but we don't have a good track record for that. So I just think it's a scary thing to have in here. I know we've had trouble this past year because we've had lots of exceptions. And I think we've tried to be fair about it. And I know that, you know, I'm come across as the negative person on the committee because I try to follow the rules and I want everybody to have the same rules. I think having something like this in here makes it even more wide open for different rules for different people.
Lot grayer, yeah.
Just it scares me.
It does allow it to be a lot grayer, that's it, you know, definitely.
You think?
Yeah, thanks for coming. However, grayer, in other words, it gives more latitude to what we can and can't do. Because you're right, a nonprofit could apply, even though it's the rule that they can't, and we could grant them the application. That's correct. That's what this would allow.
Any program requirement in writing, you can make a request.
But what it does, is it creates that document trail,
Right.
rather than the, oh, we paid for mail through, right? Our money done now, it's gonna. It more formalizes it, and I would think that it was maybe more that way, but in every ordinance we have, pretty much. It's the waiver request, there's a waiver request form for site plan review. You know, I want to be exempt from this, I want to be exempt from that. And the planning board in that case weighs in on it and determines whether or not it's of merit to be able to issue that waiver. And if it is, then the guy gets incorporated into the building permit.
And there's the no merit. So if we see something that we think would really be an advantage to our town and it's not within our guidelines, and it's black and white. If it's gray, we can then say, because of these reasons in a waiver, we will allow that to happen this time. And then someone can come later on and say, well, how come they did it? We say because of this waiver. So.
Still do that without having in here in writing. I mean, if I was making an application, I'd look through all this and I'd write something different. I mean, it just, I don't know, I just think it's too broad. It's just, it says, you know, we've written this, it's really just a guideline. I think that was what you want. And we'll talk it over.
And that's allowing us to do that, to talk it over.
Right.
This is allowing us to talk it over. Because otherwise we can't talk it over.
You could.
We have been talking about.
Yes, we have been talking.
And you've been granting waivers without
Yes.
getting a formalized.
Yes, we have.
And so I thought that, well, it seems like we're loosening restrictions, it's actually formalizing the process of loosening restrictions.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
It's formally loosening restrictions.
As opposed to just saying, well, we keep coming back to these guidelines, modify.
I need to leave, so I'm sorry. Gonna
I
have-
think it could be at least. Exceptions may be made or something, just start out by saying, we don't consider waiving anything. Why say that up front?
I'm sorry, but I have to leave, which breaks a quorum, which can be done. Oh, no, this is no. Oh, okay, I do need to leave. I'm sorry. I told someone I could do something about it. So, there you go. It's all yours. Sorry. You guys continue. Just to let you know, the Bureau has been approved for the first phase, but we haven't got the final. We've had a good application and the company, the organization is quite pleased with the application, so.
So we have got grant money for phase one.
We haven't got any grant money until the middle of May.
Okay.
Thank you all. Hopefully we'll see you again someday. Maybe in a blind way.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.